Hello everyone, welcome to Dr. Rajkumar's Learning app. This is Puvendan. We are continuing the Polity. So this chapter is all about the background of Indian Constitution. We need to understand about how British invaded India. Okay, around 1600, a group of adventurers of merchants formed an association and they got a charter from the Queen Elizabeth I. Charter means it's a royal order. Okay, the Queen can give her assent in terms of the particular group of members can go and do adventure around the world, and they can occupy any colonies and they can occupy any territories. And if it case of taking control of that particular territory, even they can do wars. So this is called charter. This charter was received by the adventurer of merchants and they renamed it into East Indian Company. This East Indian Company came to India in the year of 1608 for the purpose of opening their factories. Okay, they came to India and they reached to the court of Jahangir during that time period under the Mughal Empire, and Jahangir gave Farman to open their factories in the region of Surat and Masulipattnam. Okay, later on, other person named called Jan Shore also came, and he wanted to establish the factories of East Indian Company in the territorial of the Mughals. So this continued for a long time period. Then the governor was appointed by the East Indian Company to take care of the commercial affairs, right? So the person named called Robert Clive, he was the first governor of Bengal. So that person did a lot of corruption activities in terms of getting more gifts and receiving money, and also engaging in the individual trade activity as well, private trade activity as well. So now the East Indian Company come to know about all the activities which made by the Robert Clive. So they wanted to regulate the commercial affairs and they wanted to end the corruption activities of the East Indian Company. That is the purpose of Regulating Act was introduced by the British Parliament, which is popularly known as the Company Rule. That timeline comes from 1773 to 1857. After 1857 revolt in India, the Crown itself took direct control over the administration of our nation. So 1858 to 1947, whatever the acts and rule did by the Crown, which is known as Crown administration. So our background of Indian Constitution classified into two types. One is the Company administration from 1773 to 1857 and the Crown administration from 1858 to 1947. So from that time period, what are all the acts which framed by the British Parliament and what is the purpose of those acts which was implemented here in India? Okay, first act, which is known as Regulating Act of 1773, regulating the commercial affairs of East Indian Company. Commercial affairs, providing regulations, how the East Indian Company is supposed to work. Okay, so the post of governor was made to Governor General. Such first Governor General of Bengal was appointed by the British Parliament as per the act known as Warren Hastings. So Warren Hastings became the first Governor General of Bengal, and for the purpose of doing administration there, he was given 4 members to assist him under the Executive Council. Which council? Executive Council. This Executive Council members will do assistance to the Governor General to do administration in the region of Bengal Presidency. Okay, so the governors of Bombay and Madras were subordinates to the Governor General of Bengal. Okay, 3 presidencies were formed by the Britain. One is Madras in the region of Southern, and also Bombay, which is in the region of Western, and in the Eastern region, which is known as Bengal. So both the presidencies used to subordinate under the Bengal, which means the Governor General of Bengal used to enjoy the power over the Madras presidency as well as the Bombay presidency. Okay, and many people were working for the East Indian Company, right? All those English subject, they are engaging in different kind of activities, such criminal as well as a civil, and also particularly they don't want the company officers to indulge in the corruption activities. If in case if it happens means the British wanted to come up with the court. So first ever the Supreme Court at Calcutta was established under the Regulating Act of 1773, which contains one Chief Justice and 3 other judges to take the case of all the British subjects in India. Okay, Sir Elijah Impey was the first Chief Justice of British India at Calcutta. So all these provisions we need to understand, and also we must remember under the Regulating Act of 1773. Next, Pitt's India's Act of 1784. He is the youngest Prime Minister of Britain. Based on his policy, this act was passed in the year of 1784 by the British Parliament. Okay, they wanted to create a separate body named called Board of Control, okay, to manage all the political affairs of East Indian Company, and also Court of Directors took up managing the commercial affairs. So 2 bodies came into existence as per the Pitt's India's Act of 1784. One is to manage the political affairs, which is known as Board of Control, and to manage the commercial affairs, which is known as Court of Directors. Okay, so the company's possessions were for the first time called British possessions in India. Okay, earlier it was called as off. Now it is in. Okay, off means the British came here and they doing their trade commercial activities. So it is not belong to the nation. But here the possession in India becomes they are taking control over some region. Okay, that is what the mean. Okay, 1784. So the commercial wing headed by the Court of Directors and the political wing headed by the Board of Control. Okay, the act was introduced by the Britain Prime Minister named called William Pitt. Okay, and Governor General Council was reduced to a strength of 3 members. As you know, as per 1773 Act, the Governor General of Bengal used to have 4 members Executive Council. In that council, 1 member was reduced. So 3 Executive Council members under the Governor General of Bengal. And Governor's Council was established in Madras and Bombay. Even in Bombay Presidency as well as Madras Presidency, there is the establishment of the Governor's Council as well. Okay, so these are all the points under Pitt's India's Act of 1784. Next act, Charter Act of 1813, which ended the monopoly of trading rights of British East Indian Company and allowed other companies to participate in trading activities within India. Monopoly means single authority over the trade and commerce. So far, before 1813, only East Indian Company had a single authority, that is monopoly rights over the trade and commercial. Now, as per this Charter Act of 1813, the British East Indian Company ended the monopoly and allowed other companies to participate in trading activities with India. Okay, other companies means French, Portuguese, Dutch, all other companies also can do their trade and commercial activity with India. Okay, next act, which is known as Charter Act of 1833. Here the designation changed. Okay, Governor General of Bengal designation was changed into Governor General of India. Such first Governor General of India, William Bentinck. Okay, Lord William Bentinck was the first Governor General of India. Okay, and also the presidencies of Madras and Bombay were taken away with the respective legislative powers were made subordinate to presidency of Calcutta. Now, there is no dependency of the Bombay and Madras with the Calcutta. So, all these 3 were separated and they got legislative powers as well. A legislative power means lawmaking. Legislative power means lawmaking. Okay. So, William Bentinck, as I told you, was the first Governor General of India. This act completely ended the commercial activities and purely they focused only on which activity? Administrative and political. Okay. So, they want to take a control over administrative and political of India. That is the purpose of enacting Charter Act of 1833. These are all the provisions. It is mandatory to know what exactly is required for your examination. Next, Charter Act of 1853, which established a separate Governor General's Legislative Council. Okay, each Governor General used to have their own Legislative Council for the purpose of lawmaking. Okay, purpose of lawmaking. 6 members in the Legislative Council. Out of 6 members, 4 were to be Indians. Okay, particularly the respective of Madras, Bengal, Bombay and Agra. All these 4 presidencies. Okay, the introduction and open for the competitive examination for Indians into the civil services. Okay, for that purpose, Lord Macaulay Committee was formed in the year of 1854. You must understand 1854, Lord Macaulay. He was the one who laid the foundation for civil services in India. Okay, Satyendranath Tagore became the first Indian to qualify the service in 1863. ICS, that is right now which is known as IAS, Indian Civil Service, Indian Administrative Service. So the first person who cleared that examination, Satyendranath Tagore. Okay, the father of civil service in India, Lord Charles Cornwallis, because of his efforts only to modernize in terms of civil service in India. So that we used to call Lord Cornwallis as the father of civil services. Okay, all these provisions under Charter Act of 1853. Next, Government of India Act 1858. Okay, this act was framed by the British Parliament after 1857 revolt. Okay, this changed the game of Britain here in India, and even there was a clash between British as well as the East Indian Company, because British is the government and this East Indian Company is the private entity. Okay, this private entity used to share the revenue with the British government, but the revenue of East Indian Company is very high profit. So the Britain government wanted to take a control over East Indian Company. That is the purpose of doing many regulating act over the company to cut the corruption activities. Now this is the right time, the failure of East Indian Company to defend this 1857 revolt. So the government itself took control over India. After that taking control, the Government of India Act 1858 was passed by the British Parliament, which became the purely administrative body. Okay, the Crown administration was replaced to the administration of East Indian Company. Okay, it is also known as Act for Good Governance, Government of India. Act of Good Government of India, because they don't want any kind of revolt from the Indian side, and they need to establish their government in terms of good. Okay, it abolished the control and court of directors, and also abolished the British East Indian Company and abolished the Mughal administration as well. So purely administration was under the control of Britain government. Okay, and abolished the Governor General's post and created a new post name called Viceroy. Such viceroys used to be the nominated person or the representatives of the crown. Such first Viceroy of India, Lord Canning. Okay, Lord Canning became the first Viceroy of India as per the Act of Government of India Act 1858. It also created new office which is known as Secretary of State for India. Okay, this person will sit in the British Parliament and he is responsible to take care of the complete affairs of the India's administration. To do that administration, the Secretary of State for India used to have around 15 members, which is popularly known as Indian Council. This Indian Council will assist Secretary of State in the matters of Indian affairs. Okay, he was a member of which parliament? British Parliament. Exclusively one person from British Parliament, and that person also nominated by the Crown used to sit in England Parliament, and which is the post name called Secretary of State for India, for him to assist around 15 councils members exclusively from the representatives of the East Indian Company will assist him. Okay, so these are all the provisions you're supposed to remember under the Government of India Act 1858. Next one is Indian Councils Act. Indian Councils Act purpose is increasing the members in the councils. Okay, so expansion of viceroys, which council? Executive Council. Okay, they made provisions for him to nominate some Indians as a non-official members. So Lord Canning nominated Raja of Benares, the Maharaja of Patiala, Sir Dinakar Rao. These 3 people were nominated to the Executive Council as the non-official non-official members. Okay, non-official members. So, new Legislative Council for Bengal 1862, okay, Northwest Frontier Provinces 1866 and Punjab 1897 were established. Earlier, Calcutta, Bombay, Madras. Now, the new Legislative Council also created for Bengal, Northwest Frontier Provinces, that is Pakistan, with sharing border with Afghanistan. Okay, and Punjab. Okay, these legislative councils were established. Okay, so all these provisions you need to understand under the Indian Councils of 1861. Next, Indian Council Act of 1892, because here they wanted to give some power in terms of discussion through the budget. Okay, discussion of budget given to the Legislative Council in India. So far, the budget of India was framed by the British Parliament. Now, the Indians also can sit as a non-official member. They can discuss the budget, but the voting rights will be in the hand of only the governor of the respective council. And expanded the councils, and some members could be nominated to both central as well as the provincial legislatures. So, Indian Councils Act is the major reason behind enacting from the Britain Parliament. They wanted to, just establish their council members, increasing the members as well as including non-official members from the Indian side. Okay. So, Indian Councils Act of 1909, which is popularly known as Morley-Minto reforms. Okay, Minto is the Viceroy of India. Morley is the Secretary of State. They sit together and they'll come up with some reforms. Okay, they increase the number of members in Central Legislative Council from 16 to 60. Okay, increase of 60 members in the Central Legislative Council. And Satyendra Prasad Sinha became the first Indian to be nominated as a law member to the Viceroy Executive Council. So, first ever Indian person was nominated by the Viceroy himself, name called Satyendra Prasad Sinha, as a law member for the Viceroy's Executive Council. So far, no Indians were allowed inside of the Viceroy's Executive Council. First Indian is getting post, which is known as Satyendra Prasad Sinha. The Communal Electorate also introduced here. Okay, Communal Electorate, Muslims. Muslims were given separate representation to elect their representatives, which is known as Communal Electorate. Okay, in any one region of India, the community who belong to Muslims, proportion to their population, they'll get allocation of seats. So, Muslim people can choose their representative, and their vote also they can cast to the Muslim candidate only, which is known as separate electorate. So, Lord Minto considered to be the father of communal electorate in India. Okay, this is known as communal electorate system that introduced under the Indian Councils Act of 1909. Okay, Government of India Act 1919, which is called as Montagu-Chelmsford reforms. Montagu was the Secretary of State. Chelmsford was Viceroy of India. Okay, it came into effect in the year of 1921, and central and provincial subjects are listed. Okay, two type of lists, center and provincial subjects. Center means state, like central mean union, provincial means state. Okay, so the provincial subjects were further divided into transferred and reserved subjects. Okay, transferred and reserved in provincial, not in the center. Okay, so this introduction of two subjects in the provincial, which is known as diarchy or double government system. Okay, diarchy or double government. So, introduction of bicameralism as well. Bicameralism means two houses, upper house and a lower house. Okay, introduction of 140 member into the Legislative Assembly and 60 member into the Legislative Council. And also Public Service Commission was established to recruit the civil servants. Remember, all these points that you need to know as a basic. Okay, diarchy was introduced in India as per which act? Government of India Act 1919. Bicameralism was introduced under which act? 1919. What is mean by bicameralism? So likewise, a small static area only you need to focus. Do not go in deep study of what is reserved, what is transferred and all. You just focus only on the factual information. That is fair enough for your examination. Okay, next act which is known as mini constitution. Okay, mini constitution. Okay, Government of India Act 1935. The act divided the power between the center and units into 3 items. Okay, now if in India they wanted to make a law, they started giving some subjects under the list that comes under federal list, provincial list, concurrent list. If central wants to make any law, they can pick the subject from federal. And if the state wanted to make any law, they can pick it from the provincial. If both wanted to, common law framing, that comes under your concurrent list. Even right now, union, state and concurrent list we have in our Indian constitution. Based on that only, the parliament is framing laws as well as the state government is framing their laws. Combination of both, that comes under your concurrent list, which was introduced in the year of 1935. Provided for the establishment of All India Federation with the provincial and princely states. Now they are coming up with a concept called All India Federation under the 2 category. One is provincial states and another one is princely states. Provincial state means the state comes under the control of British administration. Princely state means the state which ruled by the princes, the king's rule, okay, monarchical rule. Abolishment of diarchy in the provinces and introduced provincial autonomy. Earlier act, under the provinces, we have 2 subjects, right? That diarchy government was abolished. Now the provincial autonomy was introduced. And in the center, introduced diarchy, okay. Whatever the transferred and reserved subjects comes under the provinces in the earlier act was introduced to the center now. So center now have the transferred as well as the reserved subjects. Introduction of bicameralism in 6 out of 11 provinces: Assam, Bengal, Bombay, Bihar, Madras and UP, United Provinces. And also establishment of RBI, Reserve Bank of India, and also Supreme Court, Federal Court at center. Right now in New Delhi we have Supreme Court, right, which was established under the Government of India Act 1935 and also RBI, okay. Last act which is known as Indian Independence Act of 1947, okay. So partition plan, June 3rd plan, June 3rd, 1947, Lord Mountbatten, last Viceroy of India, he gave the partition plan. Based on that partition plan only, the Indian Independence Act was framed by the British Parliament. Okay, this act gave the birth of Pakistan. Okay, right. So was to give effect to the partition of the country and at least declaration. Okay, Clement Attlee is the Prime Minister during the time of India's independence. Okay, it created 2 independent dominions of India and Pakistan. Both the countries respectively got independence from the Britain, and Britain ended their rule in India and authorized 2 independent nations can be there. Okay, so the Indian Independence Bill got royal assent on 18th July 1947. Then you know the rest of the history. 14th August 1947, Pakistan got independence. 15th August 1947, India got independence as per the Indian Independence Act of 1947. Okay, so these are all the provisions and also background of our Indian Constitution. After this background only, the Constituent Assembly played a key role in terms of draft our Constitution based on the socio-economic and political condition of India. Okay, right. So, a few questions we'll discuss. Who was the first Governor General of India? Okay, so the answer is Warren Hastings, Lord William Bentinck. Okay, Lord William Bentinck. So, you need to know for Governor of Bengal, Governor General of Bengal, Governor General of India, Viceroy of India. So Governor of Bengal, Robert Clive. Governor General of Bengal, Warren Hastings, first. William Bentinck, Governor General of India. Lord Canning, Viceroy of India. So you need to know about who are the first. So this 4 category only you need to understand. So this is fair enough information. Next, the Supreme Court at Calcutta established under which act? Okay, I told you Supreme Court and also Federal Court. This Federal Court also known as Supreme Court. So as per 1935 Act, it was established at Delhi, which is known as Supreme Court. Okay, now in current day, which is known as Supreme Court. But the real Supreme Court to take care of the British subjects in the region of Calcutta, which was established in the year of 1773. This is the first Supreme Court, okay, which established at Calcutta based on which act? Regulating Act of 1773. So you have 2 variations. So you must understand what is Supreme and what is Federal. This Federal turned into Supreme after the independence. Okay. Next question is, who is the father of civil services in India? Okay, father of civil services in India. Okay, Cornwallis, because he did lot of steps in terms of giving more Indians and also important of civil service examination. Okay, right. Next, which act is known as the Act of Good Government of India? Act for Good Government of India. You know, after 1857 revolt, the Britain government took complete control over India. For that purpose, they come up with which act? 1858 Act. This act popularly known as Act for Good Government of India, which is Government of India Act 1858. Next one is, which act introduced communal or separate electorate in British India? Okay, which act it was? You know about communal electorate? This communal electorate was introduced in the Indian Councils Act of 1909, which is providing a separate representative from the one particular community. Those community people can vote only for that person, which is known as separate electorate status. Okay, so these are all the important points that you need to understand in terms of background of your Indian Constitution. So make sure that take all the static part and revise it multiple times, and also practice a few questions based on the same chapter. Okay, thank you. All the best.